This pencil's as big as this boss fight in God of War Ragnarok. Now let's take a look at the new releases, including God of War Ragnarok. Hello and welcome to Parents Guide to Games. My name is Stefan. Please like, share, and subscribe. Here are the games for the week of November 8th, 2022. The first game on our list is Football Manager 2023. This is coming on Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The rating is everyone. This is a sports simulation game in which players select and manage real soccer teams from clubs and leagues around the world. Players make management decisions that include negotiating contracts, handling staff, and developing the team's tactics and strategies. And the next game on our list is Oddworld Soulstorm. This is coming on Nintendo Switch. The rating is teen. The content descriptions: blood and gore, language, use of tobacco, and violence. This is an adventure platformer in which players assume the role of a character trying to save his people from an evil force. From a mostly side-scrolling perspective, players traverse platform environments, solve puzzles, and engage in various combat tasks. Enemy guards use missiles and machine guns to attack players and unarmed characters attempting to flee. Combat is highlighted by cries of pain, gunfire, and explosions. Missiles sometimes cause enemies to explode into gibs or small chunks of flesh. A handful of sequences depict characters with bloody gunshot wounds. During the course of the game, characters are frequently depicted smoking a cigar. Swear words appear in the dialogue. Now let's take a look at Sifu. This is coming on Nintendo Switch. The rating is mature. The content descriptions: blood, drug references, strong language, and violence. This is an action game in which players assume the role of a martial artist on a quest for vengeance against a gang. Players infiltrate the gang's hideout. They use punches, kicks to defeat enemy gang members in frantic melee-style combat. Players can pick up various objects and use them as weapons against enemies. Combat is highlighted by cries of pain, impact sounds, and close-up camera angles of finishing blows. Enemies sometimes emit splashes of blood when hit, leaving small bloodstains on the ground. One cutscene depicts a character stabbed with a knife and bleeding out. In the hideout level, players encounter a drug cartel called Purple Mist, which is a depiction of a amount of purple powder that cut lines. Text and dialogue also reference drugs. Now we're going to jump into Sonic Frontiers. This is on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The rating is everyone 10 and up. The content descriptions: fantasy violence. This is an action platformer in which players assume the role as Sonic as he zooms around colorful zones and attempts to defeat Dr. Robotnik. As players speed through the whimsical environments, they can jump on enemies' heads, causing them to transform into small creatures. Boss battles can depict cartoony bombs and explosions. Sonic reacts to damage by losing coin-like rings. Next up is God of War Ragnarok. This is coming on PlayStation 5. The rating is mature. The content descriptions: blood and gore, intense violence, and strong language. This is an action-adventure game in which players help Kratos and his son on a dangerous quest. Players explore various realms and engage in frantic hand-to-hand combat against human-like raiders and fantasy creatures. Players use axes and chained blades to battle enemies, often resulting in large blood splatter effects and dismemberment. Players can perform finishing attacks that depict close-up impalement via blade and handheld weapons. Repeated axe strikes to creatures' necks result in decapitation. Swear words are heard in the game. Next up is Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration. This is coming on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The rating is teen. The content descriptions: blood, drug references, fantasy violence, language, and mild sexual themes. This is a collection of classic Atari games from a variety of platforms. Some games allow players to engage in one-on-one fights using human-like characters to punch and kick each other as they attempt to deplete opponents' life meters. Other games include space shooters, dungeon crawlers, and mining games with the cartoony explosions used to defeat monsters. The collection also includes artifacts and game interviews from key figures and moments in historical gaming eras. One interview references a pedophile in the context of a game. Other interviews reference drug use. Swear words can be heard during the interviews. Now let's take a look at Resident Evil 2. This is coming on Nintendo Switch. The rating is mature. The content descriptions: blood and gore, intense violence, and strong language. This is a survival horror game in which players assume the role of a policeman and/or college student battling a zombie outbreak in the fictional Raccoon City. From a third-person perspective, players explore environments and use pistols, shotguns, tasers, and explosions, and flamethrowers to kill mutant creatures and zombies. Combat is highlighted by realistic gunfire, screams of pain, large blood splatter effects. Cutscenes also depict instances of intense violence and gore, a character's throat being ripped out by a mutant's teeth, a man's body cut in half, leaving entrails dangling from the torso. A man's head crushed by a zombie's hands. Some areas also depict mutilated corpses and zombies with exposed organs. Swear words are heard in the dialogue. Now let's take a look at Tactics Ogre Reborn. This is coming on PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The rating is teen. The content descriptions: fantasy violence, mild blood, mild language, and mild suggestive themes. This is a role-playing game in which players assume the role of a knight caught between warring factions in a fictional world. From a 3/4 overhead perspective, players take turns selecting attacks, moves, and skills from a menu to defeat enemies in a grid-like battlefield. Characters use swords, guns, and magic spells to kill enemies. Battles are heard by impact sounds and grunts of pain. Cutscenes depict further acts of violence. Characters stabbing themselves, knights slashing civilians, a bound man whipped for information. One cutscene depicts small bloodstains on a knife after being stabbed. Some characters' portraits also depict bloodstained faces. Some female characters are designed with revealing outfits. The dialogue references suggestive material, and swear words are heard in the dialogue. And the last game on today's list with a full description is Valkyrie Elysium. This is coming on PC. The rating is teen. The content descriptions: language and violence. This is an action game in which players assume the role of a Valkyrie tasked with finding and purifying lost souls. From a third person's perspective, players explore environments and battle monsters, fellow Valkyries, and boss characters. Players use melee weapons, elemental attacks to kill enemies in different combat. Battles are highlighted by impact sound, cries of pain, and explosions. One sequence depicts a character dramatically impaled by a spear. Swear words appear in the game. And the rest of the game on today's list are also coming out, but no information was available. Thank you to bensound.com for the music track. Please follow Parents Guide to Games on YouTube at Parents Guide to Games, on Facebook at Parents Guide to Games, on Twitter at ParentsG2G, and email any questions or concerns at parentsg2g@gmail.com. And always, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.